Um, so, okay. What's that? Play it again? No. So this game, basically, I would describe it as a little bit like the game Just Dance, except you actually just dance. It's just a safe space where people can express themselves through dancing as a worm or as a trio of worms, and make up their own dance moves. And the whole thing is recorded, and at the end you have a short little music video that you choreographed yourself. And what I thought was really great about it, while having people playtest it, was that everybody has their own style that they put forth in the game. All the moves are very simple, swing the worm one way, swing the other way, freeze in a pose, things like that. But you can actually mix those all together to make really interesting dance moves. And watching people play it, or watching other people watch people play it, was really great, because everybody was really excited to see how different people express themselves through the game. And yeah, let's skip through a little bit. That's a good one. Actually, here's a good example of. So we showed this game. How do I make it? We showed this game at a festival type thing in Montreal, where someone actually rigged up a dance pad for us to play with it. And what I thought was really great, that I captured a little bit in this Vine, is that children had a wonderful time just going crazy on the dance pad and watching the worm mimic their moves. And these people were working together to express themselves through my worm game. And the reason why I think that this is a really important thing to be making is because I guess I came from, when I was younger, I was always particularly good at math and science, and my brother was always very terrible at it. So my parents would think that my brother is the creative one, and I would always go on to do some kind of fancy business job or whatever. But I never really felt that way, and I think games like this have allowed me to realize that I'm just as capable at expressing myself as someone who, sticks their head in a notebook or a sketchbook all day long. So games like this really, they help you get comfortable with the idea of making your own creative decisions, and in a way they secretly force everyone to be creative, whether or not they know about it. So one day, maybe if they're ready to really come out of their shell and start making stuff, they'll be able to do that in a much more comfortable way. Also, creating things is a really fulfilling experience for me. It's incredibly fun, and I find anytime that I'm not able to do that, I kind of get into this depression, death spiral where I'll get uninspired, and by being uninspired I get sad, and by being sad I get more uninspired, and then it's just awful. So things like this, where it's kind of a low, a very safe place where you can still feel like you're making something, I think is really helpful for that type of situation. And on that note, I also, I guess we as Co-op Mode have started running workshops to help empower other people who don't feel like they're able to make things on their own. So we have at least one of them up online now, and the idea behind them is basically, teach programmers who don't feel like they can do anything without an artist how they can get by and actually create something themselves, or teach artists who think that they need to be able to program to make something cool how they can do that without any kind of programming, and just make something super cool and put it out there in the world. Or even designers who don't feel comfortable doing either can take that workshop and run with it. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Just move this over. Hello, hello. Hi. I am GP. I go by Mouse Fountain on the internet for mysterious reasons, and I am a game artist and graphician, and I'm just gonna do kind of like a show and tell thing because I was gonna do a talk about like sort of aesthetics and my artistic ideas, but I think that it's like kind of more interesting to just see a bunch of stuff. So I do a lot of like pixel art things. This is some of my art, and I do a lot of 3D art. Like I've done a lot of art for co-ops games. This is 3D pixel art, and I do such things. These are like we for a while we were just jamming quite frequently. We'd spend like week-long prototype projects, and I got into this idea of just like trying to make 3D art really, really fast. And so that's like a bunch of these experiments where just like what kind of art can you make in that context? So this is a game we made called Kung Fu Volleyball, and that's. Do we have the build of this? No. Okay. And that's a cool game that you should look up on the internet. And this is a game called Your Best Friend, Unfortunately, which is like a asymmetrical multiplayer game, which you can show a bit of, just so you can see what it looks like moving around. And that was just an attempt to make something really dense and lush, but also look very computery. Okay, we're not going to show that. You can look that up on the internet as well. Are there? What is that? Okay, thank you. And then there's this other game called Please Don't Space Dog we made, which oh, you've heard of it? Good. That's a cool game you can look up on the internet. But so this is like this is the kind of stuff that I do at Co-op. I'm like working on our small little prototype projects and stuff all the time. Yeah. So we also all do stuff on the side too. And this is like, I made you may have seen, I made this thing that makes cat faces. The computer generates cat faces, and Bronson made a Twitter bot that just like tweets them every hour. And so this is a thing. What? I was
asking if it was generating on the fly right now.
Yeah. So if you look up @GenerateACat, that's what that is. This is just a thing. Yeah. This is this is a special version of GenerateACat. That's a preview. That's going to be the secret advanced GenerateACat mode. But I've also started doing a bunch of like little construct games. Like this one. This is a game where you're a worm, because we should. I just wanted to call it right now. 2015 is going to be the year of the worm. It's going to be everyone should make worm games. But this is a game that's just about like having a lot of trouble living your life and moving around. And Salim's kind of pro at it, so he's doing it too easily. But it's just like about the weight of a physical body and trying to survive, you know. You should show the other one, because I also made this. Wait, which one are you going to show? Okay, I also make a Sonic fan game. It's Space Footage. Oh my god! Because that's there's no. It's not actually Sonic. It's just a blue dog. There's no like trademark infringement here. He's a sassy dog. You could. This is the best possible end to that game. Yeah, I don't really have a conclusion for that. I was just wanted to show some stuff that I'm doing.
Is that everything?
Yeah, that's my things. Thank you.
Can I have the thing? Thank you. Hang on.
What happened there? Oh, cool.
Cool. Hi, my name is Nick. I go by Newton64 on the internet for other reasons as well. What? Raise the mic. Yeah, also it abbreviates to N64, which I'm very fond of. So this is me going out for Halloween once with a mask of myself, which was a lot of fun. It was weirder when people started borrowing the mask and walking around as myself at the party I was at, so that was cool. I have no video game making experience to start with coming into co-op. I mean, I worked at the Canadian Space Agency and the Royal Victoria Hospital in Montreal for a while. And they both sound like really cool jobs, except they were both incredibly domain specific and thus very boring. So I sort of escaped from that to make a few little games on the side. A lot of like really sort of nonsense projects that I kind of dug, but I didn't really feel like showing off too much until this game competition started by Kokoromi, another Montreal games collective, started. It was this competition to make a game using only one button, Gamma 4. You may have seen it at GDC in 2010, I think. So I made a game for that tournament called The American Dream. Oh. And this is, I should point out, this is before Terry Kavanagh made a game called The American Dream, so we're currently in a bitter IP battle. So I made this game called The American Dream, and it's pretty, I don't know, very dark and gray and cynical, I guess. You're born, you alternate between working, playing, shopping, fucking, having kids, and praying, and then you die. And that's the extent of the game. But actually, I was like super proud of it because even though it lasts about 5 minutes, it really expresses exactly what I wanted to in the game, in the mechanics, in very like straightforward mechanics too. I made a game called Everything is Beautiful, where you have to escape from prison by blowing up the prison and yourself. I made a game. So Matt Hamill from Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time asked if there were any Canadians in the crowd, apart from us, I guess. Yes. Okay, so at least 2. Maybe 3. 4, yeah. Okay, so if any of you have seen the TV show The Raccoons, at the very beginning, Cyril Sneer is playing a video game. So I made this for one of the Ludum Dares, and I was pretty happy with it too. The game that he's playing makes no sense. I can't discern any logical rules to it, but I try to follow that on screen as much as possible. And more recently, at the latest Toe Jam in Toronto, I made this game with a friend of mine, Graham Lennon, and it uses the Oculus. And you don't physically move, but you're moving a robot who's moving through all these different security cameras. I'm actually really happy with the way that turned out as well, even though it's not as polished as it could be. But it's a jam game, and it actually like really communicated what I wanted. So I'm going to put up this comic for a few seconds if you want to read it. It's not mine, obviously. So if, I just read L'Étranger very recently, and it's sort of self-indulgent to make any kind of comparison, but there's a lot in there that I actually related with from the main character. And I noticed this morning when I was preparing the talk, because at co-op we're always totally prepped, that a lot of the early games that I was working on were very like alienating and very cold, and I was kind of happy with that, but I was always working in isolation as well, and I think that sort of showed itself in the games that I was making at the time. So yeah, that's where I was sort of before, through the space agency, through the Royal Victoria Hospital gig, and then I quit and I joined co-op. And at first, I wanted to make a game about Mars called Red Rover, which is still way in the back of my mind. But when I first started out, I wanted a game to be like the most meaningful game ever. Like every touch of the W key would make you sad. And so that was a bad idea, actually. And I thought, okay, to really make it meaningful, you need all sorts of vignettes and flashbacks between Mars and Earth and the spaceships and the future and the past. And it was a bit unwieldy. Like, I think I tallied it up. We would need something like more than 150, possibly approaching 200 mini vignettes distributed about the scene, which would all fall on GP's lap to make beautiful, because he's good at that. But yeah, basically, I slowly, during my time at co-op, I realized that that I should really try to appreciate the much more spontaneous nature of game making during the jams that GP was talking about, where we just jam on something for a week, and even if the game turned out to be something completely different, then that was a good thing. It meant we found that something that we believed in and wanted to follow through with. So Red Rover's still in the background, but it's changing somewhat based on my departure from like being this isolated guy who's trying to make a few games to like working with a bunch of really awesome game designers. So we've jammed on a few things like this. I was really happy with this cartography game where you're sailing Wind Waker style around a little globe, trying to follow the stars to different islands around the world. This was a game that I made in about 3 hours. Pardon me, on I guess mostly Bronson's egging on, or at least his example of making games in the shortest amount of time possible. I found on Google SketchUp Asset Warehouse, someone had recreated the Big Bang Theory apartment in obnoxious detail, and I'm not a big fan of the game, and I have been like, you know, it's definitely like taste policing, and I acknowledge that like some folks like the Big Bang Theory, and that's cool. I really don't. So I made this thing in about 3 hours, and I'm starting to much more appreciate that process of just throwing caution and over-engineering to the wind and just like following a different wind. So, you know, there's a wind analogy. It's cool. And to follow along with that, I mean, I've also had this other game idea in mind called Oases, which is sort of like this Nobi Nobi Boy mobile crossed with My Mom's Garden, crossed with the procedural fantasy florist on Twitter. And this was sort of, you know, again, the design was made in a weekend. But now that I started working with Sam, who's going to talk pretty soon, you know, working with like new artists, working with other game designers has actually radically changed my approach from this weirdly, you know, isolated, alienated individual approach to really just sort of spontaneous exploration, which I think is really good. And sort of, I've come away with this, like, you know, the Mars game for me has been like really important, and I always had a very specific emotional attachment to it, and I always wanted it to be very, you know, alienated and sort of very objective and scientific. But I'm starting to appreciate, thanks to the work with all these wonderful folks, that you can take a subject and really take a much different emotional angle to it, and all of them are pretty valid and pretty interesting in their own right. So that's all thanks to working with folks with cool, crazy ideas and haircuts and cats. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Sam, and I don't know anything about games. I just met JW. I heard he makes some games, and I joined Co-op not a while ago, like 1 year or 2 years ago, and I had my T-shirt brand on the internet, and I got pretty bored of it because I wanted things to be interactive and moving, and I wanted to poke at things. So I was taking a lot of illustration contracts back then. I was like a freelancer for graphic design, web design. So I got a little, like, quite a big contract for illustration on a little iPad game called Puzzle Axe. And after making that game, I was really interested in it, and I knew I want to make some of them. But I stumbled upon Co-op, and they were making games that don't really look like games, so I was really interested about it. So I pitched an idea to Salim, which was organizing the MRGS in Montreal, which is a game like meetups each month about like game developers just talking together about game design. So I pitched some images, and it was for a game called Na, that is now called Nog. We had to change the name. So those are the images I pitched to Salim. It was actually a pretty ambitious platformer where you encounter those like totem faces and you could play with them, and there were puzzles in them, so it was like 2 games in one. But Celine told me, dude, that's too big. That's too ambitious. So I just make a little, like, I cried a bit, and while crying, I just felt that I needed to make a little video that inspired. Can you play it? Oh, yeah. So, after making that really ambitious video, I thought it was pretty fun to play just with the faces in the game I pitched to Salim. So, like playing with eyes, nose, and like making things pop out of the mouth and stuff like that. And I'm really into like weird devices and weird consoles, and I thought like the DS was pretty weird. I didn't own any, but I thought it was pretty cool to have like the face on one screen and the inside on the other screen. But I was like, again, too ambitious, because yeah, making Nintendo games and not having any like resources. So I started like just crying again and making a bunch of illustrations of what could the head be. So I was making the 2D illustration, and a friend of mine helped me make the 3D models, but it was a really, really painful process. So because of co-op mode, and what I like with co-op mode is because like everybody has different talents and knowledge. So Brunson and GP made a workshop about making cool stuff with SketchUp and Unity. And I tried SketchUp, and now I'm making the 3D models for Nog. So it's a less painful process for me. I could like just make the things in SketchUp. So that's another concept of One of the Head. And then I tried other things in SketchUp, practicing a bit my 3D skills. And before any conclusion, I just want to say that working with a collaborative and co-op in general is really cool for me, because you can have your own idea and make people help you do it, and you can also like steal ideas from people around you. And also those workshops that we're making is really helpful to learn other tools. So you like always learn many things, and you can put that into the thing you want to make. And also we're helping each other's on our projects. So I'm helping Nick on one of his projects. So it helps like refreshing a bit your brain, working on someone else's project, and then going back to your principal project. So yeah, that's why I love working in a space with other creative people. So that's it. Thank you.
Hello again. So something we start to get really inspired, like by working with each other and kind of seeing the kinds of games we wanted to make. We recently decided to start a new project that we call Collab. And it's inspired by things like Forest Ambassador, Warp Door, or games we care about. So I'm just going to go back a sec. Yeah, so it's a project that's actually inspired by other art collectives. And this is something that collectives do a lot in like comics or in the art world, where they bring outside artists to work at the collective. And the idea behind that is to just like, you know, when you're the same people working with each other for a long period of time, you kind of create a little bubble, and there isn't a lot of perspective that you're getting from the outside. So by bringing an artist that from that completely different world or from a different field, it forces you to like reconsider some of your preconceived notions and some of like the traps or the bubbles that you start to form. So collab is about like diversifying our voice and empowering people to make games, especially people who come from different fields. And we really just want to like help make small games, like the kinds of games that you might see on a place like Forest Ambassador, and actually make the process of making that game financially sustainable for a few months for an artist. And the first person we're doing that with is with Paloma.
Hey. Yeah, so I think this is a super cool collaboration, and yeah, I'm that outsider artist.
Closer to the mic.
Okay. Hey, can you hear me? So I started doing animation probably about like 2 years ago. I just sort of quit school. I was doing printmaking, and I decided to just concentrate on animating. And then it kind of, just the subject matter I was like drawn to was more kind of like spatial. So I started doing sort of like just like going through space, you know? And then the NFB picked me up to do like just like a 1-minute film with them, and that was a super cool experience. But yeah, I'm gonna show you. Actually, so I tried to get this film into the Ottawa Animation Festival, but they didn't like it, I guess. Maybe it's because it's animated and on like 12 frames a second. But so just as like a shock to them, I'm gonna show it here. So yeah, this is the first film I did with the NFB, and it's called Scientific Picnic. So the theme of that project was abstract storytelling, and like I don't know, I have a comic book background, so drawing people and like technical drawings was kind of my thing. So thinking in an abstract way, I didn't know how to go about it really. So I started looking into like fractals and just like abstract shapes in nature, and so that totally opened up like the world to me. and so I started making games after a little while. I felt like really like empowered, like I learned animation, like I can keep going. So I started looking into like incubators and stuff like that, and I got into the Artsy Games incubator hosted by the Hand-Eye Society, and actually Matt Hamill, that's right there, he helped me through this. So I did my first game with Matt at the Toronto Animated Image Society. And so the project was to just, oh no?
The resolution change is like.
Oh. But yeah, so the game is called Dream Warrior. And we made it in like 6 weeks, it was. And then after that, we just kind of showed it at like a Toronto Animation Art Festival. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so this is the game. I was totally oafing through this whole thing. Like, I don't know how to program very well, so I just like attacked it face first. And, my friend did the music for this. Her project is called Ylang Ylang. They're part of this music collective in Montreal that I work with a lot. Wait, can I show something? So I kind of found this glitch in the Unity editor. It's an installed glitch. It's kind of like the camera background where it like smears everything. And I just like I loved it so much. So I tried to make like my imagery around that. And yeah. So yeah, I did this one in like 6 weeks. And then I showed it at the Montreal Game Society. And people really liked it, and it was super, 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 super inspiring. So after that, Salim came up to me and he was like, would you like to work with us at Co-op? I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. That's exactly what I need. But I told him I couldn't go for a little while. I couldn't work with them because I had to go to Calgary. Because I have a project that I've been working on. So I kind of wanted to combine my ideas for the project I was going to do in Calgary with like what we were doing with Co-op. So I came up with this big conspiracy of like what to do. And first I'm just going to show you this like weird hidden world that like you can download this game online if you want. But I just kind of threw this in last minute. This like weird like oscillating thing. I like playing this game for screenshots. Alright. Anyway, we're lost in the abyss now. Oh yeah. So I started kind of trying to push myself in terms of coding, and again, face first. So I started doing this project where it's this experience-based. Like I'm gonna flesh this out more, and then it kind of like turns into a mini game when you enter some sort of mode. Anyway, it's super